Commonwealth.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Shane always makes those promises. I'm really pleased to be here today. I want to begin by offering an explanation to those in the gallery because when Dr. Sharples stood up to speak, I shot out the door, and it's not because I don't like listening to Dr. Sharples or working with him. He's a fantastic Minister of Māori Affairs, and I work with him very closely as his associate. It's just that I am responsible for the bill, and for some peculiar reason I'm not allowed to be here if someone else is giving the first speech. So let it be clear that I have the greatest of respect for Dr. Sharples, who's worked with me very closely on this settlement, but the rules are the rules, and if I disobeyed them, the Speaker would scold me. Anyway, it's a great day today. As I said in a speech that I gave at the signing of the Ngati deed of settlement, it's not the end, because this is not a deal. This is a very sacred settlement, but it's the beginning of a new relationship. There are going to be ups and downs, there are going to be irritations, but the Crown and Ngati Whatua o Kaipara have committed to work together to address those difficulties going into the future. And it's a great day for Ngati Whatua generally, because with this third reading, we now have concluded settlements with Te Uriahau, Te Roroa. Last year we had Ngati Whatua o Rākei, and of course today we have Ngati Whatua o Kaipara. The acknowledgements have been given, and it would be repetitious to go through all the names again, but I particularly want to acknowledge Margaret Kawharu for all her wonderful work, and I see that great leader of Te Runanga o Ngati Whatua, Nada Glavish, in the gallery, and she does so much for this country. She's on the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, and I look her in the eye and I say, I know we have unfinished business. We have the harbour, and she said to me some years ago, we have to deal with issues relating to the Kaipara, and I'm very keen to get onto those, and I give her and Ngati Whatua my undertaking that that's a very important piece of work. It's about this time that the Office of Treaty Settlement staff start cringing, because they'll say, oh, he's making promises again, but that's the way it is. It is important work, not to do a deal, but to do a settlement with Ngati Whatua in relation to the harbour. Treaty settlement days are wonderful days for Parliament. They have become a regular occurrence in the House. It's because of cross-party arrangements to facilitate what are called extended sitting hours. We don't like dealing with treaty settlement legislation in urgency, because that would be disrespectful in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So through the agreement of the House, we have Thursday mornings on some sessions when we can debate these issues, and every settlement is unique. Of course there are common features, but every settlement is unique and is tailored to address the uniqueness of the relationship and the failings between the Crown and the particular iwi. And we all know the history here because Mr Tirakatani has mentioned it. Ngati Whatua signed the treaty when it was brought to Tāmaki in March 1840. From then, the Ngati Whatua community of the South Kaipara adopted a strategy of inclusion and engagement. They transacted large areas of land with the Crown to be made available for settlers. They welcomed the settlers, and then they were let down. A meeting house was erected by Ngati Whatua at Aotea, and a plinth was placed in front of the house with the words of the Treaty of Waitangi inscribed on it. When the rangatira Te Kini Tangaroa wrote to George Grey about the plinth, he explained it was meant as a sign for us and our European friends to see. So the tragedy which this important settlement bill seeks to put right is that despite their endorsement and their open and willing engagement with the Crown, by the early 20th century, Ngati Whatua o Kaipara were in a position which was no better than other iwi. They were effectively landless, and of course with landlessness came poverty and destitution. The Tribunal, as part of its historical work, undertook an inquiry into your claims just over a decade ago, and you described living conditions for Ngati Whatua in the 1950s and 1960s as resembling rural slums. The history is set out in the introduction to the bill and in the deed of settlement, as are the Crown's acknowledgements, and they should be. And I say what I said in the previous debate, that it's very important that people who doubt the validity of what this country is doing with its historical claims work should read the historical account, should read the acknowledgements, should acknowledge the facts, because the facts speak for themselves. I don't want to talk at any great length about the economic and the cultural packages. I believe the economic package puts you in a very great position to work with other iwi in the area to develop a good, strong economic base, and I believe with the work that's been done in the wider Tāmaki area, there are great opportunities. I want to acknowledge the Department of Conservation, because they will be working with you in the years to come on a co-management framework. The Department of Conservation has some wonderful policy people at head office. They have some really great people on the ground who care for this work, and I know that they're going to do a good job with you into the future. There are some people on my side I want to acknowledge. Parliamentary Council Office do a great job drafting the legislation, often in conditions of great urgency. The Māori Affairs Select Committee, chaired by Tau Henare, does a wonderful job in going out, hearing submissions on bills, and then reporting the bill back to the House. And Tau frankly makes mincemeat of those who get in the way. There was a submission on the Orake bill that he didn't like, and I think the submitter left the worse for wear. I want to acknowledge the Office of Treaty Settlements, who do a great job, and I particularly acknowledge my Chief Crown Negotiator in the Tāmaki area, Mike Drever. He has done fabulous work over the last few years. Whenever there's a recess, he has me in the general area working and meeting people. In the last recess, I had 3 days of meetings in Hauraki. He is a very hard-working and dedicated individual, and I'm pleased to place on record my admiration for the work he has done, because it was he who started this work with Sir Douglas Graham a couple of years ago, and no one would ever have imagined that we'd get this far. But today is your day, and I acknowledge the presence of so many of you in the gallery. Thank you very much for your hard work, the hard work of your lawyer, Grant Powell, the hard work of your negotiators. So many people have done a great job to get to this stage, and I have to say that in treaty settlement terms it's worked very, very well indeed. I signed the agreement in principle on the eve of Christmas a couple of years ago, and because of the dedication of the Kaipara team, we are where we are today. So thank you very much, and all the very best for the future. As I say, there is some unfinished business in relation to a certain harbour, and once again I give my undertaking that we're onto it.
Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.